The iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max have been out for a week now, and I wanted to give you my short-term review of the new quote-unquote cameras and some of the exclusive new camera features for the iPhone 16 Pro lineup. Now, before we get into my camera samples, I do want to talk about one of the biggest new changes to the iPhone 16 and the 16 Pro, and that's the camera control button. Now, I don't want to call this a review of anything right now, especially the button, because I still think I need a little bit more time to live with it. But I want to run through some of my very brief, extended impressions of the camera control. I love the idea of it, I really do, but I currently don't love using it for everything related to the camera. I think it's absolutely excellent for launching the camera app when I remember that it's there, and taking a quick photo or video with a single press, or you press and hold for video. I think that's great. But other than that, I find it incredibly slow and difficult to start getting into some of those haptic gestures that I can honestly just do faster by tapping the screen. I think a lot of it just might be the button placement itself. Most people use these phones for photos and videos in portrait orientation these days, but there are still some of you out there, the photo purists, that are going horizontal. And I think it's much better for the camera placement or the camera control placement when you're using horizontal. But when you're rocking the phone vertically, I just think it's a little bit too low, especially on the very large iPhone 16 Pro Max. I think the sweet spot is somewhere in between the side power button and the current placement of the camera control. But that's just me. Of course, would love to hear from you what you think if you have an iPhone 16 or 16 Pro and you're using camera control, where you think it could be on the phone itself. Now, I often find myself accidentally opening the camera app, but a quick jump into settings and changing the launch gesture from a single click to a double click really saved me here. I don't do that anymore at all. I think it's fine to use the swipes for zoom and swapping cameras, but I think it's pretty hard to do some of the other stuff more quickly than you would just using your fingers on the screen. I'm remaining optimistic about it, but right now it's just not something that I'm like rushing to use all the time, especially when I'm about to take a photo and I want to switch between, like, I don't know, photographic styles or whatever. I don't love using the camera control for that. I do love that it frees up my action button, which is what I was using to currently launch the camera app. So now having that free for something else is really nice. So this year, the cameras themselves haven't really changed all too much, except for the iPhone 16 Pro now gets the same 5x telephoto camera that was on the Pro Max from last year. And of course, the Pro Max also still has that 5x telephoto zoom. The ultra-wide has also been upgraded to a 48 megapixel sensor that will pixel bin the photos down to 12 megapixels, but it should help improve image quality, especially in well-lit conditions, but also a little bit in low-light scenarios. And yeah, I found that to be pretty accurate. I think the camera looks much improved overall. It's still not my favorite camera on any smartphone. I don't use ultra-wide all too often. I'm definitely a main or telephoto person, but I'm glad it's more in line with the quality of those other two sensors because I think those were so far ahead for many years. Of course, I'll be showing samples all throughout this video, so please feel free to let me know your thoughts, but I think some of my favorite shots that I've captured so far have actually come from the ultra-wide lens. Now, before we get into the rest of this video, I do want to give you more information about today's sponsor, Keeper. Imagine having your accounts hacked and your data stolen. I think that happens quite a bit to people out there, and I feel like a lot of people just don't use a password manager. With so much of our lives online, social media, your bank accounts, emails, keeping our passwords safe is so much more important than it ever was in the past. And again, a password manager can easily solve that, and Keeper ensures that all of my passwords are secure and easy to manage. Keeper makes it simple to create and store your passwords securely in a personal password manager that you can access anytime, anywhere, on any device. Whether it's you or your family members, Keeper ensures that your passwords and accounts stay safe around the clock. And if you need to share anything within your vault, you can do that securely and with peace of mind that everything is going to remain secure with military-grade encryption. Keeper keeps your data protected and accessible from your phone, your tablet, or your desktop. Now, I know Apple released the Passwords app in iOS 18, but I'm still using Keeper because there are so many other useful suite of features that Keeper offers, and also just being able to use it on other devices. I have an Android tablet. Maybe you have one for your kids and you want to have a password manager for them on that device. You can use Keeper again on any device. And there are just other health monitoring features for your passwords that you don't get with Apple's Passwords app. So if you want to make your life easier with Keeper, get it half off today if you use code MacRumors50 at checkout. Keeper also offers a free 30-day trial so that you can experience how great it is firsthand before you buy. So click the link in the description down below to learn more. And thanks Keeper for sponsoring this video. The main and telephoto lenses are really not that different than last year in my opinion, which is fine because I thought they were totally great last year too. But in terms of photos, I haven't really noticed any photo that like, wow, really jumps out. And I think that's going to be so much better than the 15 Pro and Pro Max, or really even the 14 Pro, to be honest with you. Nothing really jumps out. The photos are still crisp. The main sensor is still great for getting natural bokeh with close-up shots of subjects, but if you want a bit more of that blurry depth of field, of course, I love to use the portrait mode. And I often couple that portrait mode with a telephoto lens, and I think if you can make the distance work, that's my personal favorite. I think overall, you're still going to be pretty happy with what's offered on the Pro and Pro Max this year from a photo standpoint, whether it be from the new ultra-wide or the very good and familiar main and telephoto lenses, assuming you're already a fan of what Apple does with its image processing. Now, I know some of you might not be, and you have the ability to edit your photos for a long time, but with the newly updated Photographic Styles on iPhone 16, you can really get some fresh new looks dialed in and customized to your liking this year. In fact, I've been using these styles more and more than I ever have since the feature was introduced a few years ago. I love the new tone mapping pad here where I can swipe around and get a good look and feel for how I want the image to look. And then I can exclusively shoot in that style if I want to. And I don't need to mess around with any like number values and exposure and all of that stuff. You can also completely change or edit the photographic style after the image has been taken. And if it turns out you took a shot with the photographic style on and you don't like it, you can completely remove photographic styles entirely from the image this year. Again, I would love to hear about some of these images that I have shot with the photographic styles over the past week in the comments down below, but I really like some of the looks that I've been able to get, but I do want to know your thoughts down in those comments. And lastly, with the cameras, especially when it comes to video, there are a few new features worth mentioning here, like being able to shoot 4K 120 frames per second. I think these videos have looked excellent so far, and I actually shot an entire video using the iPhone 16 Pro and the 16 Pro Max, which you can check out by clicking the link in the upper right-hand corner. I used a lot of the 4K 120 shots from there, and you're now seeing it here, but I find it very useful for on-the-go shots like these, especially if I didn't want to take out my DSLR. So something like me being at an event, I could probably just use my iPhone, slow it down a little bit, and get some smoother stability with my shots. You can also shoot 4K 120 in ProRes and in log, but beware, file sizes will be absolutely massive. Overall, video remains excellent on the iPhone. There are not many phones out there that look and feel this good when you take video, especially if you get creative and use some of these tools to your advantage, like the 4K 120, or even log footage, so that you can get the look and feel tweaked to your liking. When it comes to audio with the iPhone 16 for video, there's this new audio mix feature here that can adjust the audio from standard to what's in your frame. You can use studio and cinematic modes. Each one isolates the audio in different aspects, like audio in frame will obviously be more hyper-focused to what is currently the subject on screen or what the camera is pointed at, and the studio is pretty much right in line with that, but even more isolated. Cinematic blends in a little bit more of the outside background noise with the subject, but you can also dial in at the bottom and kind of isolate or bring in more background noise depending on what you're going for. I think these work pretty well overall, but if you overdo it on the slider, the isolation can sound like you're on the inside of a tin can pretty quickly, and I've done that before, so be careful that you don't overdo it. All right, so this is the audio mix, and so there are 4 different options, right? There's standard, there's the studio, there's There's what I don't remember before. In-frame mix and cinematic, right? Is that the other one?
Yep.
So there's 4. We're in a semi-noisy environment. There's cars going by. There are people all around having conversations, and so I'll be cycling through the different sounds, and then we can see which one sounds better. So that's 1 week with the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max, specifically using the cameras. I think the cameras, aside from the ultra-wide, are going to take on a very similar approach from last year. You're going to have very similar photos, unless you start getting creative and you're starting to use some of the new things like the new ultra-wide, the Photographic Styles, 4K 120, and even the new camera control. That's going to make it feel a lot different compared to years before. So would love to hear from you in the comments down below. Is all of those new features worth upgrading for you? Have you upgraded? If so, what are your thoughts on the cameras so far? Let me know down in those comments. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you around in the next video.